Steve Bowers welcoming you to Capitol Talk, a presentation of the Chamber in Jackson, featuring State Senator Ed Jackson, State Representative Johnny Shaw, and State Representative Chris Todd. Good to see you, gentlemen. And we look forward to this discussion. We appreciate the involvement of the Chamber in sponsoring this event, and we appreciate you being with us here at E+ TV6. The presenting sponsors of this program, Allison Insurance Group, ATA, which is Alexander, Thompson, and Arnold, AT&T, First Bank, Gerdau, the Jackson Energy Authority, Stan Harris, and Voya, Steve Little and Brad Little representatives, and West Tennessee Healthcare. And we appreciate the involvement of the Chamber and their sponsorship in helping make Capitol Talk possible. There are other Capitol Talks that will be coming up later during this legislative session, but we're pleased with COVID and everything else to have this opportunity to host this here at E+ TV6. Gentlemen, it's good to see all of you.
Good to see you, Steve.
Yeah.
And I want to get an overview from each of you, if you will, on, well, whatever's going on with the session, whatever you want to highlight, because we have plenty of things to talk about thanks to our Chamber questions and your discussion. So, State Senator, we'll begin with you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Well, of course, we're in the middle of everything. We've been in committees. We're going into committees now. Committees are actually closing next week. Most of them are. Okay. I think another one's going to last until the first week in April.
Okay.
And
so we'll be out in May?
Well, actually, I think they are forecasting the end of April.
End of April.
And possibly first week in May.
Okay. You've been there long enough that it used to go June.
Yeah, I remember those days, but no more. Okay. Yeah. Since these guys took over, no more. Okay. Now, seriously, we in the weeds. This is what I call the weeds of session. Yeah. The committees are getting ready to close. We'll probably get a couple more weeks before the subcommittees will close. But if you've got legislation, you've definitely got to get it filed because we're about to get to a point where we're short in committees and long on the House floor. Okay. We'll have 40, 50, 60, maybe even more than that, bills on the House floor at one time now. Mm-hmm. We'll probably start back to meeting, if not next week, week after next, 3 days a week rather than 2 days. Right now, we're just meeting Monday and Thursday. But we'll probably go back to Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Is this working? And the reason I asked this, and Speaker Hallwell, I think, when the House was the one that started trying to push and streamline, because it did sometimes go long and whatever. And budgets, was the thing that had to be done, and it got pushed to the end. Mm-hmm. Is this working? Some are saying this is too accelerated, it's too fast. Y'all feel okay with it?
In some cases it is, but there are a few things every once in a while. In fact, Senator and I have got a bill that we probably gonna need a little more time on if we could get it. Right. So it depends on the legislation, because sometimes when you present legislation, you got so many people involved in it, everybody got to come to agreement as to what you want to do with it, how you want to do it, and sometimes that delays getting it filed and getting it to committee as early as you would like to. So it works, but I would say the short sessions are more in favor than the long ones, but occasionally it does take.
No perfect system for everybody.
Right. No, right.
But overall,
Well, I started 2 years ago, and I thought, okay, a fast pace is pretty good, so we're not stretching the taxpayer dollars out into June and running up more expense. But I think this is a little too fast, like Mr. Shaw said. I think there's a lot of things that don't get the right look on them, the number of eyes that should be, and the number of questions. Committees are very interesting, and folks on the church committees and private organization committees know this. It depends on the mood in that day as to what happens, what questions get asked. You can come in someday with the simplest bill that everybody agrees on, and it can get 57 questions. And go on and on and on. And
because another one has a lot to do with what else is going on with that committee.
It does.
Their time and everything else.
It does. And what members.
Get rolled. After all those questions, the bill might get rolled till the next time, next week, to that same committee.
Or to summer study or to
next. What happens in some of the committees is they are limiting. Okay, you've got 5 minutes to give your presentation to somebody who's has information that we need to hear in committee to make a decision. And well, you have 5. Well, they need 15 minutes sometimes. So I think sometimes you can rush it up too fast, and so I think we need to take our time a little bit more, especially this session. It seems like we lost a week with the storm, with the weather.
Then y'all were in special session.
And so let's do it. Let's slow down and do it right the first time, and not have to come back next session and have to rework
Do
it.
speakers control that, or committee chairs, or combination of those?
Speakers.
Okay.
Speakers,
So there's, and it's understandable. They wanted to accelerate the pace of it and get it focused.
And then I will include this as well, but a lot of people have already planned their vacation for May.
Okay. We're used to, if you're the legislature, like, we may be home by July 4th.
Yeah, you know, it's like, I got to get out of here by May because we've already planned, we
Planned our
already booked the
vacation,
trip, you know, so it works both ways. But I think maybe if we knew a session was going to be like from second week in January till the end of May, it would give us a little more time to present our stuff and get things together. And
One thing that has to be done is the budget, and everything else.
Yes,
you know,
it has to be.
And we work those into the committees also.
Okay.
I think we've heard all of our budget sessions from each one of the departments already in all of my committees. So that's finished. Now we're just doing the
Any
bills.
major disagreements on the budget this year, or what the governor's proposing? Tennessee's in an advantageous position with more access to more money.
They will be, but to be honest with you, and I don't know, I think these guys probably would agree with me. I've been on the budget ever since I've been in Nashville, for 20 years actually. But at the end of the line, your chairmans, your speakers, your chairmans, people like that is going to pretty well decide at the end of the day how things are going to work out. We can put in budget amendments. We can agree, we can disagree, but you know, it's, what, 75% of it.
At least.
It's
Well, and probably a higher percentage than that is really the governor's priority.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be, at least in some of those positions,
Sure.
the willingness or a lack of willingness to change very much. We're just going to take this package and it's just easier to pass it. So the proposed budget ends up being tweaked very little, it looks to me like.
So in this process, the governor has more influence?
Extremely more.
Yes,
Interesting.
yes.
Is that a change because
I think it's the
because
way
of
it's
party?
always
It's just kind of the momentum of things.
I think it's the way it's
I
always
think it's
been.
always been because at one time, you know, we were the leaders and it was that way then. So,
I just remember interviewing a state representative years ago, and I won't say from where, and it was because I asked him about the budget, and he said leadership decides all that. You know, and that was kind of an honest answer. I mean, it's like, it's really not going to make any difference what I think about the budget.
We can give our input, but leadership does do
he said that.
and then too, if you work with people, you get, sometime they'll reward you with some things you want if it's a small item in the budget. I mean, you know, we do get that opportunity, and we've got budget amendments in now for Madison and for Hardeman and all of that. We get them all? Probably not, but we'll get some of them.
I will say, I have seen some efforts by folks that have a really good idea. For example, cutting the professional privilege tax that wasn't in the budget.
Right.
But they keep pushing and pushing and get more leadership on board and convince more people. And you have outside groups as well. You have those professions in that particular instance that are hammering people as well, saying, look, this is an unfair tax. We shouldn't have this. It was only supposed to be temporary, and we've never gotten rid of it. It's time. We've got a surplus. Let's get rid of it now. I'm seeing a groundswell of that. It's not in the budget. But
We've made some progress there.
Well,
But there still has some more to do.
What I remember that it was done because, of course, one time Tennessee was scrambling for revenue. And the service industry was in essence exempt from state taxation. So, and then they talked about taxing services, and then, you know, everybody went ballistic over that because, you know, if I'm running a service, a lawyer or whatever, I don't want to add sales tax to my fees. How do you do all that?
Sales tax to advertisement.
The advertising guys. Then it became, well, okay, we'll have a fee. You just pay a fee if you're an accountant or you're a beautician or whatever, right? You pay a fee.
For the privilege of doing business in the state. It's not a privilege, it's a right.
Okay. So you feel like we should wash it anyway?
Completely.
Okay. All right. Y'all feel the same way?
Yep.
You know, being an ad man,
Pretty much,
I can see that. We're all the same. Since we're talking shop, one other thing, then we'll get into the questions. Since we're talking shop, the district lines, Ed Jackson represents State Senate District 27. Chris Todd represents District 73, which is in Madison County. And Johnny Shaw represents District 80, which is part of Madison County, starts in Jackson and heads into Hardeman County. The lines will be drawn. We've had population shifts that always affect this, and the number of representatives will not change, but the districts can change as we shift population. We're growing in other sections of the state, not in this one as much. So what do y'all see? But by the time we get into the elections next year, there will be new district lines drawn. And the legislature will draw those. Y'all anticipate any big changes?
Well, I have 5 counties.
You got 5 counties?
Madison, Crockett, Lauderdale, Dyer, and Lake counties. I've lost some population in some of my counties. And I think in the Senate, we are supposed to represent 200,000, 210,000, something like
Right,
that.
okay.
So I'm under that. I think
Because
I'm-
this district at one time, prior to you being elected, was this county, Gibson, and part of Carroll.
Carroll, that's right,
Okay.
uh-huh.
And then it went
then it-
through
then
Crockett to
the last time that-
Lauderdale, Dyer, and Lake.
Yeah.
Right, which was an odd configuration for that district.
I'm sorry.
I said it was an odd configuration.
Yeah,
but
really.
From one that kind of had been centered in West Tennessee to one, you're all the way to Tiptonville, Tennessee, which is not anything wrong with folks in Lake County. It's just odd that that links back to a Madison County
Yeah,
base. You see that changing?
Yeah, well, I think I'll have some additional.
You'll have more counties.
I'll have part of a county or more county.
Okay, wow.
Another county.
Do you see the configuration staying kind of the same?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I like my district. I like the counties I'm in.
Yeah.
I know them now, know them
Right.
very well. And so I have a great interest in trying to help these counties. We have things going on, like in Lake County, with the port up there.
Right,
We trying desperately to develop that. Now we got some infrastructure things coming in with $12 million for a rail going into that port, which was desperately needed for infrastructure.
Okay.
And broadband up there, just things like that.
Which we'll get in.
Well,
Your district at one time had part of Haywood County.
Yeah, and the noise, a little bit of noise is that it may shift back.
Toward Haywood?
Yeah, well, the noise starts in Memphis, Shelby
Is the
County.
driver still in District 80? It was created so
Well,
that there
now-
could be a predominantly African-American district. Is that sentiment still there?
It is, but we've lost population as well.
Okay.
But like I said, I think where I'm affected is it starts in Shelby County, and the noise is we probably going to lose one or two maybe districts
In West Tennessee?
in Shelby County.
In Shelby County, okay.
Which means it would give more population for people like me, I guess, whoever. But the noise has been, and I don't know this, it's just noise, that I would stay where I am and pick up some more of Haywood County. But Haywood County has lost just about all of its population, period. It's just not much there. But then there's Chris over there. He's lost population. He's representing 3 counties. So I don't know where he would go, but that's noise now.
Okay.
Nobody knows what's going
where
to
it will
happen. At
settle
least I don't,
Has this district worked, the creation of a minority district?
Yeah.
I mean, and in doing so, what you do inadvertently is, because you're picking a vote that Republican representatives are not going to want to get into.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
yes.
it becomes a comfortable Democrat fit, but you're the only Democrat representative left in rural West
Tennessee.
And that's because of the nature of that district.
Yeah, but I think what has made it work is I represent people. I don't think about I represent African Americans only. I just represent people. Because honestly, I'm one of the few Democrats that get a lot of Republican votes. And I'm grateful for that. But Republicans are welcome in my office just like everybody else. That's my point. And I think what we have to do is we have to understand that we represent people and not races of people. Absolutely. So that's what I've done. And I mean, I shake everybody's hand, ask everybody for a vote. But when you call, you don't need to tell me whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Just tell me what I can do for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
District 73 probably has been more cohesive than many. District 72 changed a lot. At one time it was here in Madison County, and now it's not and all that. But yours, you see any big changes coming?
I don't see any big changes. I think I will probably gain a little more population, and we have to because of the way the state has grown and the shifts. And Madison County, I think, my district has shrunk just a little bit in population, not as much as many others. And so
You don't see? Do you see it moving outside of Madison County and picking up something else?
I've understood, and Mr. Johnny may know this better than I because he's been through this before, but I've been told that one of the rules they go by is that you don't ever change a county that's whole. For example, if it's a 73rd district is part of Madison County, all you would do is gain more of Madison County. You wouldn't take part of Gibson or something. There's something.
Which would take part of that, I guess, away from you and then would push you somewhere else.
But that's been the norm. He wouldn't leave Madison County. In the past, that's always the norm.
That's what happened with District 72, is it shifted out of here and then went to Henderson and I guess went all the way at one time down to Wayne. Okay.
But then if he picks up more of Madison, then I got to find some more somewhere. And so that's why they talk about.
You've got one other area in southern Hardeman County that is there linked to a representative that represents Fayette and McNairy.
Yes.
To get there, it's kind of like a land access.
Yes.
I got to have road access.
Yeah.
So south of 57, will that stay intact?
I think that will stay intact. I think that will need to stay intact so he can get from District 96 over to, what is McNairy? I forget it.
He has McNairy.
He has McNairy. But he'll get from Fayette County
At one time,
over
McNairy and Hardin were together. Now it's
Yeah.
McNairy and Fayette, which is near going through southern Hardeman County.
Yeah.
We were telling you, if you live downtown Salisbury, as it used to be, you'll not be in Representative Shaw's district. If you live over on 57 North in Salisbury, you'll be in your district.
You'll be in my, and I just simply say, if you find my name on the ballot.
That takes care of it.
Yeah.
This is Capital Talk with E plus CV6. The Chamber is presenting this, and State Representative Johnny Shaw and Chris Todd are with us, State Senator Ed Jackson. And we've had questions submitted, and we're going to get into those. We want to remind you that this program has been sponsored by, as Capital Talks are, they're usually held in person at the Chamber or at other locations, by the Allison Insurance Group, by ATA, Alexander, Thompson, and Arnold, AT&T, First Bank, Gerdau, Jackson Energy Authority, Stan Harris, Voya, Steve Little, and Brad Little, the registered representatives, and West Tennessee Healthcare, and we appreciate them being involved with this. Well, we got many things to talk about, and we've talked in general about the budget, which seems to be going through pretty smoothly. Medicaid, we went into block grants and other things. Now there's word that there may be more money coming in because of the federal stimulus package, and that at least the Speaker of the Senate has indicated that he might be open to considering a Medicaid expansion, which we have resisted in this state, and that's been discussed. You know, I guess a couple of things. The block grant system, if that stays intact, does that change things dramatically as far as Medicaid coverage? Mm-hmm. And then are you open to considering an expansion of it? And I guess that's kind of two areas.
I think what the Speaker said was that he says there's a $900 million to $1.2 billion that the federal government has dangled a carrot out in front of the state of Tennessee to help get them to accept
an expansion of
Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
So he said that's worth looking at. It's not that he would be for it. I know he's opposed to it 7 years ago when that came up, when
Right.
Haslam had the Insure Tennessee.
Right.
And there were a lot of strings and different things there for that. But you know, you got the shared, block grant, which is the shared
Right.
savings account, is actually what it is.
Now that's a kind of a new thing that we're working here, that the Trump administration signed on its way out
Right.
for us. All right, does that change things dramatically as far as Medicaid?
It would if we.
Because that's one of the questions we got. You know, is it going to cover as many people, or what's going to happen, or?
If we're looking at Medicare expansion, then we got to consider that what we've got with the shared savings account, which is called TennCare 3 now. That's the official name for it, TennCare 3.
And it primarily would expand services for folks already on TennCare.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then depending on how much savings we have generated, it could add people to the roll. So there is that opportunity.
All right, so it would expand services for those that are on TennCare.
Correct.
Then the expansion beyond that would depend on what kind of cost savings that we saw then.
Yes, and that's generally how this started. Tennessee
Does
has
that
always,
take like a year or so to kind of see? Is that how this works?
I would think so. You know, they're always they have a set standard of cost, and if we come in below that, if we're able to deliver those services at a savings, which we have done traditionally, and I don't remember the numbers, but it's significant. And that's why we even asked for this. Well, we're sending all these savings back. Could we use part of them? And I want to say, Mr. Johnny, you may remember from Finance Committee, it was like 60% of the savings we would keep.
Okay.
And so the federal government would have the leftovers.
You've been a proponent of the Medicaid expansion
Yeah,
because of rural hospitals and
think
other
we
things.
could
So
not
you
only-
may see this differently. How do you feel about this managed block grant?
I feel okay about I think the block grant is better than what we've been doing, for sure. I think that's a step up.
All right.
And certainly I'm not against that, because anytime you can do better, that's good. But I think you could not only expand services for people who already own Medicaid, but you could pick up the others that are not if you expanded Medicaid with that money. Now, however, as we talked about this earlier, 5, 6 years down the road, we don't know exactly where the money might come from. Of course, I'm a risk taker. You know, I believe you do what you can do when you can, and 5, 6 years down the road, we'll find some other way to do it.
So,
you know,
Senator Jackson's talking about dangling this $1 billion out here, or $900 million, or whatever, and you're concerned. Somebody expressed concern that if we take it, okay, then when the federal government backs out of this,
yes,
then we got these people enrolled,
Yeah.
and then we'll be in a situation as we were, I guess, with Governor Breast or whatever, when you walk in and start slashing people off.
That's exactly
$1
right.
billion, give or take a little bit, is actually a 2 or 3 year program. That we would use that over a 2 or 3 year period. After that, we're pretty much going to be on our own. So we got to look down the road. Is this the best thing for Tennessee down the road, or the shared savings account that we're doing now? Is that right now? I like that. I like what we're doing with that. I think.
But the presupposing is something we don't know. You know, we got to figured we.
This is a crucial area for people. I mean, if you have coverage and if you don't have coverage, it's a whole different world out there.
Yeah.
And for hospitals, medical providers, for everybody. So what is the timetable of this? I mean, the federal government, right, we're turning, I've heard reports, we got $6 billion or whatever coming to Tennessee in different forms. I don't know that that's an accurate
$13 billion.
13,
There's
okay.
some, one of the congressmen was the first
So-
step's going to be about $13 billion for everything.
When does that start landing in specifics where you say, okay, this is going to transportation or this is going to medical? Or
Education's probably getting it first.
Education,
They're
yeah.
already
Okay.
starting projects.
They are.
for that money.
So, how do you move, or how are y'all moving in response to this then?
Well,
Just
it's
medical
hard.
coverage is one. I mean, is there a timetable? I mean, I think you just don't have an unlimited amount of time to say, well, this is how we're going to handle this.
And I think you're right, because the legislature can't do without money.
Right.
We can't just go up there and pass laws without having the money to back it up. I think we have to just kind of move.
I guess that's my
pace is
question. The
based upon
procedure
what
is-
the federal government does.
This 1.9 trillion or whatever that's been passed,
yeah.
okay, is going to land somewhere, sometime.
Yeah.
But do we know yet in the state of Tennessee, okay, this is coming for this is coming for this is coming for this, or is it still just?
There is a breakdown. I don't have it with me, but there is. I've got
To
a
the point you can put it in your pocket and spend it?
Yeah. Well, you can put the 1,400 in there, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But that is the concern, has already been expressed, is that
Yeah.
we take that carrot that's dangled in front of us.
Yeah.
And then 2, 3, 4 years down the road, that money's cut off, or the percentage decreases,
Yeah.
our percentage increases, then we as a legislature have to come back and say, okay, we have two choices.
Yeah.
Just as under Phil Bredesen, we either cut people off the rolls, which is not popular,
Right.
or we raise taxes.
Right.
There's not going to be a third option. And folks need to know that now. If they think about, oh, this is wonderful to get all this money, it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
And when it stops, there will be a hard choice to make. And many of us are going to be probably sitting there having to make that choice, so we're thinking ahead on that.
So right now with Medicaid, it's the implementation of the block grant. That's
Yeah.
where we are right now.
Yeah.
This other thing is that's not going to hit next.
Well, that wouldn't hit this year
Yeah,
under
anyway,
any
right,
conditions
okay,
at this
right,
point in
okay,
time. It might be something we could probably consider when we go back next year, but not this year.
And Steve, one other point about that folks need to keep in mind, not only about when that carrot runs out,
Right.
but also, I've seen news articles on this where if we had Medicaid expansion like that was proposed under Insure Tennessee, that all these rural hospitals wouldn't have closed. And I've got a list of all the reasons hospitals closed in West Tennessee, and I don't believe, if I remember, it's been over a year ago, I don't believe one of them had anything to do with Medicare expansion. They all had intrinsic problems that they were dealing with for years that had nothing to do with Medicaid. So when you drill down to the true facts, the talking point doesn't really sell. So folks need to know that it's not going to bring those hospitals back by any means, but I think it will open up opportunities for things that are really needed, like rural emergency rooms, standalone emergency departments that we critically need. And I think there's a business model there that could work.
Would that be done through existing organizations or new organizations that could?
It's being
That could
done through
develop those?
existing and new organizations.
Yes, we're bringing
Already.
back the hospital over at, an ER in Brownsville, in Haywood County.
How is that effort coming along? Do y'all know?
I think so far, so good.
I think
From what I know, of course, I don't represent that area, but
right. I
our
know
church
that's
is in
kind
that
of outside
county.
us.
And from what I've heard, so far, so good. This is a group.
Yeah. Well, when
I've
Community
said-
Health abandoned McNary, that hospital was torn down, so that
Yeah.
facility's not even there anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I have
Your
heard-
hospital okay in Baltimore?
Oh, yeah, yeah, we see to that every day. It's on our bucket list every day.
Anything else?
I think in McNary, I've understood, and I don't know the exact detail of it, but I think there's a group out of Corinth that was trying to get licensed to have a standalone emergency department there, I believe.
Okay.
But I don't know where that is in the pipeline.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard that too.
But I think where there's a need, there's going to be something that fills that need, as long as we allow with regulations and maybe reduced regulations, allow those folks to do that.
Y'all feel then okay about the medical coverage in Tennessee?
I feel good about what we've are doing. We're making progress all the time. TennCare is we've got to get some of the payments up for TennCare for different things. And I think with this, with what we're doing with the shared savings account or TennCare 3 now, we got to use that term. It's going to make a lot of difference. It's going to help a lot.
I'm a little reluctant because I think we could do better. Again, I know we talk about we have to look at not just today but the future, but government serves people. And I don't think you need to hold my services back today because I don't know exactly how I'm going to provide it next year.
Okay.
So I just think maybe we could look, and I don't think maybe we've looked at all of the options that we could take in terms of how we serve people, because I believe that health care is a right. I do. You know, and we do some other things, and it's kind of a long story. It's really hard to just answer that question, yes or no, but we do other things. And for an example, we're getting ready for the carry permit. We're gonna lose a lot of money on that. People don't have to pay. I'm all for that because I'm not against guns. I'm not changing the conversation. Right. But don't tell me you're gonna give one group all this money, free money, but then the other group who needs services can't get it because we don't have the money. So right. I'm just saying it's a long story that needs to be discussed, and maybe we'll get into that before we finish today.
Okay. And we do hear sometimes that point made that healthcare, the serving of healthcare is a right. Healthcare is a business. We do not have the right to get free healthcare in this country. That is not a God-given right. We have the right to equally access healthcare. No one can discriminate, but it's a private business most of the time where you've got a doctor or nurse providing a service that I don't think government has the right to say, you have to give that service for free. And that's what's happening. I mean, our local hospital gives away 10% of their whole budget, basically in indigent care, folks that can't pay or refuse to pay. So is that correct, that the rest of us pick up that bill? I don't know. There's certainly, as Mr. Johnny said, there's a bigger argument there.
Yeah, it is a big argument because I respectfully disagree with that. It is a private business, but I think that's where the government can come in and make up the difference for the providers. But as far as people who are working every day, and well, you got to do one or the other. We are way below the minimum wage, which I know is another story. And small businessman, I don't want to get into that now, but if we can't pay you where you can buy your own health care, we need to do something to help provide it. So I'm saying there's a balance there somewhere that we're going to have to look at sooner or later, because a man who doesn't make but $10 an hour can't afford to buy health care. You know, if he could make enough money to buy it, then that would be different. So it's.
So we're not prepared if somebody has a heart attack to say, well, are you insured or not before I pick you up, right? We're not prepared to do that. I mean, that's just not in our heart.
But we should save lives. Yeah.
I'm sure we talk about that one all day.
Yeah.
You know, all right. So some other capital talk. We've had other questions coming in, and I don't want to get these necessarily out of order, but they will be. Okay. One of those is on criminal justice and criminal justice reform. The governor has made that a real initiative in his administration. So what's happening? You're on the criminal justice committee, right?
Yeah, we have a committee in the Senate, subcommittee under state and local government, and there are 5 of us on that committee. In fact, we just had a meeting yesterday brainstorming on what needs to be done to where we can make a difference. The budget for the corrections is now it's $1.1 billion, and it goes up every year, and so it's an issue that we need to address. And almost all of that money is state money. It doesn't come from the federal government. Okay. So that's something we really need to address. So we're doing a lot of things. I think in the budget on recovery courts, there's $4.6 million to expand residential recovery courts, which is a good thing. We're also $9.5 million to improve salaries for probation and parole officers. They're underpaid right now. So we have a shortage of probation officers in the state that their caseloads they're overloaded, and they don't get the attention to each individual that the individual needs. So there's a pay increase to try to attract more people in that.
Are we rethinking then, I guess, and it's being done in Madison County, I know, because Madison County's in the process of spending a lot of money to expand its criminal justice center. But part of it is to say that there needs to be, it's not just holding people anymore, that there's some responsibility. These people are coming back out. And the governor's saying most of the people that are in prison are going to be released at some point. And it's
96%.
We should, as a state, it's to our benefit as a community, start helping these people transition, not just here's $50 when you leave and good luck. That it's kind of like we need to be educating, reprogramming, reorienting, whatever, instead of just warehousing people. Is that where we're headed with this?
That's the idea, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of programs doing that right now. We've got sheriff's departments in West Tennessee that have some really neat programs for training, for putting those inmates into a job while they're incarcerated. They're drug tested almost every day. They're taken by transportation from the sheriff's department to a job, and then when they get out of prison, they can still keep that job. So they've got a really neat program in, I think, Gibson County and Dyer County as well.
Sheriff Box in Dyer County, which is one of my counties, several years ago, he came to me and said, I got this program I'd like to help get some funding from the state for. But what his program is, he takes people out of, has a big location, and he has a smaller location they close. Well, he transitioned that over to these people that might, nonviolent offenders that have an option. So he brings them in, he gives them computer training, counseling, just whatever they need for drug rehab, alcohol. They get them back with their families, but they're still incarcerated. Then they help them to get a job locally, transport them to the job. Some of them make even as high as $17 an hour, and they pay their fines off. They get back with their family, and when they get out, so his recidivism rate is around 10 or 11%. Which is unbelievable, where the state is about 46, 48%
and Madison County, I think the figures were like 80%.
Yeah, it's 80,
as far as
higher
the
than
people
that.
that are in our jail.
Yeah.
It's not, okay.
So programs like that, like Chris said,
feel like
across
this
the
initiative
state.
is a good initiative.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. One thing I did not ask, and it had been, and it should have done when we were talking about medical care. Looking back on this last year with COVID-19, has the state handled this well? Has the services been equally available to people? Is your impression, because that's one of the concerns, the communities of color, did they get the same access to COVID treatment and whatever was going on out there? How do y'all feel?
It's been more reasonable than other states. I think we've still seen a lot of criticism from our constituents that there have been too many restrictions, and the restrictions have been placed on small businesses more than large businesses, and very unfairly. And so there's been quite a bit of pushback. Even now, folks really demanding that these restrictions be lifted. I had people asking me that yesterday. I'm like, I really don't know. I mean, it's a local issue now. The governor doesn't have anything to do with that. And we keep a state of emergency in place to draw down federal dollars. So that's why you continue to see that. And we have to keep that in mind. We don't want to miss out on something that we have the ability to get that can help in a lot of these areas.
Well, I think overall the state has handled it as well as they could, because COVID's been a strange animal. I mean, we don't really know today even how to handle it, although I think there have been areas that's been overlooked that should have been included.
Such as?
Well, some of the black communities have been left out in terms of getting the services that they could. I think they're stepping that up now, but that's been an issue in the past. But COVID, my argument about COVID is the one thing I know it does, it makes you sick and it kills you. Right. That's what I know. And when you argue the point that you don't need to wear a mask or you don't need to get the vaccine, all we're trying to do is to protect everybody. I wear a mask and get a vaccine because not only do I want to protect me, but I want to protect Ed and Chris. I want to protect everybody I'm around. And so I don't see a restriction on my business with COVID. I see us trying to help each other. This is different. This is not something we have a choice in. We do have a choice, but we really don't have a choice. And when you talk about your rights, this is a killer. And we got to take a different attitude, to me, about COVID than anything else that have ever happened in the state, in this country. We just got to, we got to work together and practice the safety measures to get rid of this stuff.
And you're encouraging people to take the shot.
Take the vaccine. I mean, look, if you're going to pray, God never tells you how he's going to answer the prayer. Okay. You're praying for COVID to leave. The vaccine is the answer. Okay. Go let a nurse give it to you, okay?
Okay. COVID hit this country, well, the world, fast and hard. And we didn't have face masks. I couldn't find a face mask when it first came out. There was no vaccine. We were reacting to things that happened in this country, in this world, in this state. And I think the governor and the Department of Health and different ones Department of Military, they've all had a focus group and it handled it very well, better than I think most states. But now that we have vaccine, I was last week at Phipps Pharmacy out in North Jackson, and they vaccinated over 300 people. And it's just a drive-through. It's very simple and very easy to do. So now we have masks. I've got 10 or 12 masks now, and so anyway.
Now the little people are trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, and it's our responsibility to keep people safe. We're not trying to run your life. I mean, I just want you to be safe.
One thing I would like to say about that, Steve, if I can, about COVID. I had COVID back late January, early February. And so I was diagnosed with it on a Wednesday. I called some friends that said, you need to get that antibody infusion. So I did. I got it at Vanderbilt. I was in Nashville. I got it at Vanderbilt in quarantine there in Nashville, so I wouldn't take it home to my wife, and for about 10, 12 days. And anyway, that made a difference. I felt like I had a head cold, is what it amounted to, that infusion. So I advise anybody that does get diagnosed with COVID, look into the infusion. They offer it out at West Tennessee Healthcare at the hospital, out in the North Hospital, and it makes a difference. It makes it very, very mild, and it probably saved your life.
One thing we have seen this week, and I hope it's not a trend, but our hospitalizations have been coming down every week for the last many weeks, and they went up this week.
Yeah.
From 600 something last week to over 800, nearly 900 this week. So Dr. Lisa Pierce here, our Commissioner of Health, is saying, hey, it may not be over yet, so let's still be careful.
Yeah.
Right? So we will see. One thing you're talking about in the funding, the $700 million federal money that has been retained by the state of Tennessee, where are we on that?
The TANF money?
Yeah, TANF money.
$710 million that's been in reserve account. That money's temporary assistance for needy families. And it's temporary assistance for needy families. So that's money that they had a focus group, and it took about, I don't know how long, probably close to a year, for this focus group to come up with some options for it, to how do we disperse that money. And they have just presented it. We heard it in the Health Committee this week, actually Wednesday of this week. And so anyway, they have a lot of different programs of how that money's going to be divided out, and it's well thought out. There's one thing, they have 7 grants to be divided, $50 million, and there'll be 7 grants divided equally between the 3 grand divisions in the state, 2 in each grand division, and 1 will be held for other purposes. But it's for groups like, for example, the CP Center, Boys and Girls Club, Star Center, Dream Center, just make examples of some, band together and come up with a program that will reach more people in a larger area. So that's one of the things that they're trying to do with this TANF money.
Have y'all heard an explanation as to why that money was held all these years?
And Steve, it's good to keep in mind one thing. The money is it's basically a credit. And there's a certain amount of money that accumulates in that credit. We have to spend state dollars and get reimbursed. The only way you get reimbursed is if you follow their rules. And so that's what this study group's been looking at. What can we do within this box of rules? And what new things can we do?
How did that money wind up being held, the $700 million?
Well, and as we found out in at least the House Finance Committee, that in some year, I don't remember what year it was, or a couple of years, we actually overspent what the credit was, and so we dipped into state money, and we never get that back. It's not like you can get it back the next year. And then it was, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen again, is my understanding. And so I think I'm not sure if anybody really, I don't know that we've ever discovered if something wasn't done properly and we just didn't spend the money, or if there wasn't as much of a need. I'm not really sure what the shakedown on that.
I think it was just basically what you said.
Are y'all pleased with the way it's being handled now?
Well, I am now.
I heard the program. In fact, I've got a whole the cut sheet on it right here, which goes into detail as to how it's to be divided out. It's very, very well thought out, and it's going to do a lot of good for a lot of people.
We discovered it. Everybody was after it when we when that pot of gold was discovered, man. Everybody
when you find money, there's always about that. There's somewhere.
It's good to have the attention on it, and that's really what's happened. Is a real good focus has been put on it, and they're looking outside the box now as to how can we get this to the people that actually need it, give them a hand up instead of a handout.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned, one thing that was mentioned that we haven't talked about, it's a very important thing, is education and initiatives and everything else. And you feel like education is going to be the recipient of a lot of this federal money that's coming.
It looks
what
like
do you see
total, between what they've already received and what's coming, around $4 billion to the different LEAs across the state. And they can use it for much more now than they could previously. They can upgrade buildings. They can probably build new buildings. They can do maintenance upgrades and things that they put off for a while. So it's really going to help, I think, our rural counties. They're probably, are they weighted a little heavier, Ed, I think?
Yeah.
So they,
The rural counties are getting a larger focus on this. For example, I can make an example of Lake County. Lake County has a school, their high school up there desperately needs to be replaced. They desperately need a new high school, have for years. And they've done a good job of keeping the school in good shape with what they have. But they need a new school. This money would help them possibly build a new high school.
And I don't know where it's going because the commissioner don't seem to want to warm up to it, but I've got what you call a comeback piece of legislation. Okay. What it does is triggers how local LEAs can use the money. For instance, with the reading program, K through 3, you know, if you want to reach out, a local LEA, at its own discretion, can reach out
What's
to
an LEA now?
Local boards of education.
Okay.
They can reach out to churches and other civic organizations to hire retired teachers. They get that $1,000, whatever they pay them, to help students with their reading skills. You know, students who've lost those skills over the past few months because of COVID, they've been online. But the local LEAs can say, look, the church down the street, if they got 2 retired teachers, they can take, say, 20 students and teach them reading skills. Okay. And they would be paid through the local LEAs with some of that money now. But our commissioner hadn't warmed up to it too much. I don't know why, but I think it's a great idea because it gets the community back involved.
We're seeing some of those initiatives in Jackson, Madison County. I don't know, how extensive they've been.
They are. And in fact, we passed this in the
others.
special session. The money was passed in the special session. So the bill I got has no fiscal note on it because the money is going to go to the local LEAs, and they can do that.
If COVID disrupted anything, it disrupted education.
It did, and that's what we're trying to do.
I guess everybody looking back at it now, maybe school is real important. Right? I think it's like, hey, we don't have quite, like one of those prayers posted on the internet, Lord help me because I am not a 3rd grade math teacher when Mama's praying for him. And I'm not a real good cafeteria worker either, Lord.
I know.
Okay, so changes coming out of this there will be additional funding.
Yes.
Maybe open to supplemental help and other things that are out there.
Yes. Well, the money is there. It will be left up to each LEA as to how they want to use it.
All right, there was a bill recently passed, and it just came through, I think, about who has the right to shut down schools in emergency situations, right?
That would come up yesterday, didn't it? Yeah.
So where are we there? Should that be something the governor does, local board of education does, or the local superintendent does, or the president of the United States does?
As of yesterday, the local boards of education.
for our House, the House bill we passed.
The House bill that we passed.
Okay.
We hadn't gotten to the Senate.
And the governor, I think still, if I remember the wording of it, still can order that all schools are open.
Yeah.
So.
Or close if it comes to, like I guess in COVID.
Now, part of that was targeted to Memphis and Nashville, right, who have not gone back to school and have not wanted to.
We suffer a whole lot because of Memphis and Nashville, okay?
Okay.
I'll say that on TV.
Okay.
Okay.
And there's some other things moving in that realm about those two LEAs for sure.
So what has been the source of the conflict? Because I know it benefited us in basketball in the rural West Tennessee because there were Shelby County schools in basketball and football didn't play.
Yeah.
Or Memphis City schools didn't play, so we got biased. We got to the tournament like, we get a free pass to the finals.
Yeah.
You know, so what has been the rub here?
Well, you know, the rub has been, what was the special committee we was on looking at the governor's authority and what he could and could not do? What did we call that? I got appointed to it.
Emergency powers.
Powers. It's been a lot of ruckus about who has the power to do what. All of my years in government, this is the first year that I've learned who has power to do and not to do.
Okay.
I kind of always thought that the governor was the head guy who, if need be in an emergency, could say whatever.
Okay. We're all going to drive on the left side of the road.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Okay. when it comes to administering laws that are already on the books. And that's under his authority.
Okay.
But new laws, I mean, in case of COVID and things like this, and right now there's a bill going through the system. That bill, they created a bill from that, and it's going to limit a lot of powers that the governor may have been exercising in the past.
Okay.
But somebody asked the other day, well, what about something like a disaster like an earthquake?
Right.
You have an
live on a
earthquake
major
down
fault,
here,
yeah.
and we can't get to Nashville to convene for a session.
right.
What do you do?
Right.
Well, we never did get an answer to that. I don't know. So I don't
So
know
the
who's going to
governor,
be in charge.
the power would be taken away from the governor and given to whom?
The legislature.
Legislature.
The legislature
well,
gave the governor the power
yeah.
in statute.
The governor still has the powers, but the legislature would have the power to
Okay.
rescind that if.
We've always had that authority, though. I mean, the legislature can sell the Capitol today if it wants to. But I guess I thought we always put somebody in place because Chris and I and Ed, we might be down here in West Tennessee doing whatever, and an emergency come up. You got to convene all of us. That'd take a day or two.
Right.
When something a decision really needs to be made like right now.
Well, has that changed, or is it being changed? Or
I think we just realized that where the laws were written to give the governor the power that we've given
they derive
him
through the legislative government
was a brief time period.
Okay.
This is extended for a year. And folks have really raised an eyebrow saying, wait a minute, the executive is not supposed to have that kind of authority for this situation. And so for a pandemic, for a tornado or an earthquake, a governor's still going to have the power to make those decisions to mobilize state assets and to rescind or to temporarily change some of the way laws are administered, but the laws will still be the same. And the legislature then would have an oversight after so many days, 15 or 30 days, and I don't know what the final legislation will look like, but the legislature will be able to have oversight on that, or their representatives, for example, speakers and finance chairs and certain, chair of certain committees would get together.
What brought this to the forefront is what's happened in California and New York. And looking down the road, what is the governor going to be able to do? What is the governor going to try to do in Tennessee that would really hurt the state? And that's what's happened in those two states, big time.
And this doesn't have anything to do with who's governor now. We
That's
think
right.
compared, as I said earlier, compared to what other states have done, Governor Lee has had a very measured approach at this and very well thought out, I believe. I haven't agreed with every decision. I don't know that anybody in the state's agreed with every decision.
Right.
But it has opened our eyes to what we really have on the books and what changes may need to be made.
One of the things that's being discussed as far as the legislature, giving legislative approval, for example, to the appointment of the Attorney General. Because the legislature does select our other constitutional offices and other things. Our Attorney General has been appointed by the Supreme Court, and there's some say, okay, we need to elect this person, which we've been reluctant to do in Tennessee. I remember Governor Wilder said, you start electing all these people statewide, every governor wannabe is going to be running for treasurer and secretary of state and public, like they used to with the Public Service Commission. So does the legislature need to have a say-so in who becomes the Attorney General of this state?
I believe so. I think the public is starting to see how the way the system is right now, their elected representatives don't really have a say-so in it, and they should.
Okay. Similar to what we have with the comptroller and other things.
Possibly.
Secretary of State, Comptroller and Treasurer.
Yeah, that type.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court would make the nomination, and it would be subject to that, or would it be made by the legislature?
I haven't heard a lot of suggestions on how that would be.
I don't know.
Neither have I. Of course, I'm not an expert on too much. I don't know if I'd want to have that responsibility because I might pick the wrong guy. I've been pretty happy with the way that the system has been because I think, you got 99 House members? Is it 99? I guess, yeah. And, we're just some old rough cut guys who don't know a whole lot about a whole lot. And sometimes I think we get way out in the weeds on issues that we don't know enough about. I don't know if I want that responsibility because what should an attorney general, who should he be? Who should she be?
Our attorney general is different than in most states. They are the chief law enforcement officer. We did that in Tennessee by district, which we felt protected people. That attorney general, district attorney general is in reach. He's 3 counties. I can grab him or her.
Yeah.
Right. And I can vote for him or her.
Yeah.
And the state attorney general becomes. And what we've seen in a lot of states, of course, is the attorney general immediately goes after the governor.
Yeah.
If they're in the other party. I'm from Alabama, and we kick every other governor out.
This one done some stuff I
Arkansas, Mike Huckabee,
like.
lieutenant governor becomes governor, because we get rid of the one that's in there.
Yeah.
And so they've been. But our attorney general handles appellate cases for and then provides legal opinions for the state, and then defends the state. when the state it goes to federal court to argue in defense of a bill, whatever it is, the Attorney General steps up. But he is not a chief prosecutor in this state. That's done at the district level, which makes us different than most our many states, you know. And so we have a different system. I guess that was the reason that the court got involved in appointing the Attorney General. It's not a law enforcement function. It's a court appellate function. And so we'll see how it goes. Is there an active bill on that, or is that just?
I don't know.
I don't think.
It's just floating discussion out there.
Steve, I'm going to change the topic a little bit on you because this is, I think, something very important to all of our constituents here and beyond, and that's a Great Wolf Lodge. I know that's a complete change of topic, but I want to make sure we get that in here.
Oh, sure, let's talk about it.
So last year, you know, as we have learned, the governor met with Great Wolf a couple of years ago and said, what would it take to get you to Jackson, Tennessee? They were really looking hard at Jackson. And they said, well, we'd like to have some kind of tax incentive, you know, something that gives us an incentive based on our sales and what revenue we generate. And at that time, we had a tremendous surplus. This was before COVID. And he said, well, if we just wrote you a check, if we didn't do that, if we just said, here's a lump sum amount, because we're competing with other states to get these businesses. Paducah, Kentucky was probably our closest competitor, and they were offering a pretty good package to them. And anyway, they settled on $20 million. So he had that in the budget. Well, then COVID hit, and I was on the House budget negotiating team and learned that a little too late, that behind the scenes, some things had gotten done because of cuts. That money got taken out of the budget. So we lost that $20 million. Now, East Tennessee got something for Chattanooga, Middle Tennessee got something for Amazon, but West Tennessee got left holding the bag. So I went to bat, and I know these guys did too, with the commissioners that were over this and the governor's office to say, we want that put back in as soon as possible, that we have to have that. We cannot lose this project. So the chamber here has done an excellent job staying engaged with Great Wolf, making sure that we're still on their list and that they know we're fighting for them. So right now, that $20 million is back in the budget. It's not a specific line item. And we have kept the pressure on the administration to make sure that didn't get lost, because this is not just a Jackson, Tennessee thing. This is regional. They're going to employ 250 full-time folks and 250 part-time is what they're estimating, plus all the construction. And that property right now is generating a goose egg, not one dime. And we're actually spending money on that property to keep it mowed. So if it brought in $1, it's more than we have right now. So that incentive is going to get them here.
I guess we're just waiting on the COVID and
the
travel industry to come back, right?
It is prime. People are traveling more now. They are ready to get out. There's a pent-up need for that right now. So
and I had one government official tell me the other day, in fact, Commissioner of Tourism says the best deal he have ever negotiated.
This lodge, Jackson.
They've done the research.
Numbers attending the state parks.
And each lodge across the country that they already own is generating tax revenue like, wow.
Absolutely.
Every one of them.
So that's good news.
Yeah.
Mega site in the thing, is it still okay?
We're constantly pushing the mega site. We're pushing to see some efforts to really move that along much faster. The wastewater pipeline is being researched some more. We're going to make sure that that's done properly and at the right time, but that is a critical piece of the infrastructure that has to be completed. So we're working on it.
That's got to be in place, or got to be going before anybody's going to locate that.
And there's an additional $15 million in the budget we found out for the mega site because the administration and some research they did felt like there wasn't enough money in the account right now, and it needed a little bit more to be able to complete.
So that work will be completed as far as that?
Yeah. We feel like it will. That's not a done deal, but that's what we're working on.
There were, because we're running out of time, we always, you keep things floating, and then, the handgun, no permit required for handgun carry, that has passed both houses?
No, not yet. It comes up next week in the House, and as Representative Shaw mentioned a while ago, the governor has the money to fund it in the budget. Also, a part of that package is some criminal justice reform. In one respect, it's going to increase penalties for handgun crime. We're finding out and realizing that stealing a handgun doesn't carry much of a punishment. And so it's going to make those crimes much more costly to the individuals that choose to commit those crimes. The other part of it that he has in there, as Representative Shaw mentioned earlier, is the offset in permit sales. There's an estimate by the Department of Safety, and they have done this year after year after year. If we get this, we're going to lose revenue. Well, the revenue is an offset to their cost. That's the way the permit was created. We're going to charge you a fee for the permit only to offset our cost. Yet every year they have generated an abundance of money from that and put it in a reserve fund, and it's pretty healthy right now. I don't remember the number, but they have a pretty healthy reserve.
So you feel like washing that out?
So this is really not lost income. It's just, it's covering costs that they're supposed to have, and the citizens have been bearing much more than that cost. So it looks like that's going to go through.
It's passed in the Senate.
It's passed in the Senate. You feel like it'll pass the House?
We do.
I think it's going to pass the House, although what my disagreement is not about the guns. Everybody should have a right to carry the gun. I'm with the governor on that issue, but I do think that there are other amendment rights need to be given freedom without cost. So if you're going to do one, let's do them all.
Okay.
Let's not just do handgun permits, but let's look at all of the amendments and see where we're charging our citizens for things that they ought to be getting for free. Okay. So that's where I am.
Let me hit a couple of them. Bible is a state book?
No, sir. Should never be.
Okay.
Bible is God's word. And God is not a state official.
Okay.
God is a living organism.
Okay.
It came through the Senate 2 years ago. I did vote against it just because of pretty much what Johnny said.
And I just don't think we should ever try to bring God down to that level. We all have our differences of opinion. It's one God, one faith, one baptism. We know that. We know God is one. It's three: God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. However, you can't make God be the state. If you say God is the state book, then that means everybody got to be saved. Do you think everybody in Tennessee is saved?
Well, we're going to disagree on how that's supposed to be done.
so no.
And if I'm Jewish, I'm going to disagree with that Trinity part too.
Excuse me?
If I'm Jewish, I'm going to disagree with that Trinity part too, right?
That's exactly. Okay. So there's so much that would be disagreed with to make the Bible the state book, but God is a living organism and state is an institution. So there's separation in church and state.
I think the other side of the argument that I've heard, and I don't know, I haven't heard these on the floor yet, so I'm anxious to hear the arguments, but I have heard in the past that we're not dictating that everyone believe in the Bible. It's just acknowledging that the majority of the state treasures the Bible as a very holy, sacred book, and that we would recognize it as such. I think that's the other argument.
Is the bill coming back?
It is.
It is. Well, I got to start my argument all over again.
You've got some work to do.
We got 10 state songs, I understand, so.
Exactly.
Maybe we have them both listed states.
But I would never vote
my
for
wife
the
said Rocky Top's the only one that counts.
I would never vote for the Bible being a state book.
Okay.
Never. I would
I
not.
didn't mean to make light of that. The gender athletics, transgender not allowed in female athletics.
Yes, sir.
Middle school and high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody.
You have to compete in sports based on your race.
I stayed out of that
one
one because
gender at birth.
I have my own belief.
Okay.
A human being is a human being regardless of what they believe and what they practice.
All right.
I think that is an issue. That's a godly issue. It's a parenting issue. We cannot legislate morality. Now, I don't believe little boys ought to play with little girls, by no means.
Okay.
And I don't think there's ever been that kind of a situation, not to my knowledge, in Tennessee. But what I believe is that ought to be a matter that parents, people ought to sit down and say, look, by the choices you make in life, there are certain things you can and cannot do. I'm not going to bash you for what you believe.
I had one other major one I needed to get to, and I should have done it earlier, and that is the health department and right to farm, because we were seeing that with the concern about chicken houses and all that stuff in this county.
Well, but that was never the case, I don't think, in the first place. I think somebody took some authority that they shouldn't have never taken, but we do have a right to farm, and we should always protect that. Now, I do think there ought to be some oversight about whether or not a chicken barn, where it can go, and all of the above.
Oversight is from the Department of Agriculture.
But Department of Agriculture should make that oversight rather than the health department.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it shouldn't, certainly, the stench and all those things.
Have we had a new bill that has changed any of that or clarified any of that?
There's one moving through right now, and it probably will pass that just clarifies that they cannot get into this realm.
The health department can't get into it.
That's right.
And I don't know where it is in the Senate.
I don't know where it is in it, but
It's come through committee.
Okay.
But it's not hit the floor yet.
it passed the House yesterday.
And we see that as a camel nose under the tent, if you will, because if they start regulating that, then it's going to be, well, wait a minute, the dust created from picking beans is damaging this property or hurting these neighbors, and it's going to go on, especially when
Fall from the chemical spray.
I've been told we're out of time. Can we do this again?
Yeah.
Okay. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
State Senator Ed Jackson, State Representative Johnny Shaw, State Representative Chris Todd. This has been Capitol Talk, courtesy of the Chamber, presented by the Chamber here through E+ TV6. Thanks for being with us.